What's going on, guys? CTG Matt back. We're doing the same thing we did in the last video. We are predicting the 2025 MLB standings. This one's for National League. Go watch the American League one if you haven't already. If you did, I appreciate that. We're going to start in the East. We go 5 up to 1. Pretty simple. We're going to get right into it. Immediately with the NL East, number 5 is the Marlins. I'm pretty sure that's not like a hot take. That's not controversial, to say the least. In free agency, they brought in Cal Quantrill, Eric Wageman, and Matt Mervis, and they lost Jesus Luzardo, Jake Burger. That's it. That's it. They're a pretty bad team through and through. It's pretty young, though. They got some fun guys we like Connor Norby and Xavier Edwards. Those are fun players. However, their pitching staff is pretty bad. Sandy's going to be there, but he might get traded around midseason. You're banking on guys like Max Meyer to be very good. Meyer was very good last year in the limited innings he threw. I was pretty impressed, but at the same time, you're relying on him to get a full season going. And then the rest of your pitching staff involves Cal Quantrill. So I think that's enough Marlins talk. Number 4, a team that I think we all thought was going to be a little bit more active in free agency. It's the Washington Nationals. I thought they were going to do a little bit more. People thought they were going to be in on Juan Soto, stuff like that. Unfortunately, they didn't really do much. They brought in Nate Lowe, Mike Soroka, Josh Bell, Trevor Williams, Ahmed Rosario, Jorge Lopez, and Shinosuke Ogasawara. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. I know it's Shinosuke, but Ogasawara, maybe? All right, I don't know. I'm not going to keep trying. However, they didn't really do enough. They have a good pitching staff, and I like their pitching staff. Their losses, they lost Jacob Barnes, Patrick Corbin, Kyle Finnegan, Joey Gallo, and Robert Garcia. I like their pitching staff a lot, like I just said, actually. I still do think Mackenzie Gore is a very good pitcher. Jake Irvin has some good stuff. He needs to do it for more of an extended period. Trevor Williams, before the injury, was throwing really good innings for them as well. So I think that they have something building there, and we all thought they were going to be a little bit more active in free agency than they were. If they decided to not do free agency as hard this year, I guess I understand it because you want to see what the young guys are like. Wood, Cruz, combine that with whatever you can get out of Abrams. I like Abrams, but there's a lot going on there. But you also bring in Nate Lowe and Josh Bell, who are platooning first baseman that I really like. I like that move a lot. Don't get me wrong. Josh Bell was really good in his time with the Nationals before, from what I recall, so why not spin the block twice and do it again? Shortstop, they bring in a guy like Ahmed Rosario, who can play shortstop. I don't know where he's even going to play now, but if he plays shortstop, he can be a good defensive shortstop because Abrams wasn't good defensively. He just wasn't. He graded out pretty bad defensively. So you bring in a guy like Ahmed Rosario, who can hopefully play the position, but also with Ahmed Rosario, you're getting like an 87 OPS plus guy. That even feels high. All around, I kind of like what they did in free agency. Losing Patrick Corbin, no big deal. He was very bad. Kyle Finnegan was an alright closer, but I never thought, honestly, I thought he was a little bit like, his save numbers were kind of inflated. He was a good pitcher, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he has closer stuff. He throws hard, but overall, he gets dented. Robert Garcia was a pretty big loss, but oh well. I think they can develop a good relief pitcher. We'll move on to number 3 in the NL East now, which is where I have the Philadelphia Phillies. Big Dave, you did me dirty in free agency. Dave Dombrowski did a whole lot of nothing in free agency as they brought in Kepler, Jesus Luzardo, Jordan Romano, and Joe Ross. Pretty cool additions, to be honest. Max Kepler can play a little bit of the outfield. Castellanos is aging. You can't keep rolling him out there. Kepler had a really bad, kind of a bad year last year. It was a bad year, but he's had some good years prior. Max Kepler's a guy who's sneaky. I think already crossed almost a decade service time. Jesus Luzardo has shown to be a plus pitcher before, and I think being with the Phillies, a competitive team, a competitive environment where it's a team that's looking to win and not the Marlins, may help him a little bit, don't get me wrong. I really like the pitching additions. They lose Spencer Turnbull, Carlos Estevez, Austin Hayes, and Jeff Hoffman. Those are pretty big losses, don't get me wrong. But they bring in Jordan Romano, who's an alright closer. I don't know if he's going to be in the closing role here. Probably not. Matt Strahm was good. Austin Hayes wasn't really that good for them from what I remember. He wasn't that good when he was part of the Phillies. So that's not bad. And Spencer Turnbull was like, honestly, he looked pretty good as a starter to start the season, but then he moved back to the pen, and it didn't round out well, I don't believe. But I still do like some of the additions, but overall it wasn't enough. And their core is aging. JT Realmuto is old. For catcher years, he's getting old, and especially with all the mileage on his body from playing catcher every year. Nick Castellanos is just not that good. He's a pretty good playoff riser, I kinda, in my opinion, he's a good playoff riser, but overall through a 162, you can't rely on Casty anymore. He's aging out of that. Bryce Harper's still really good. Trey Turner's really good. But somebody like Bohm and Stott, I don't know if I can rely on consistently. It's a whole lot of players where I don't know if they're going to be able to hit this season. Alec Bohm looked good in the first half, not that good in the second half. While I do still love their pitching staff, it is a great 1 through 5. I think that their hitting is just going to struggle, honestly. Like, Schwarber's good, Turner, and Bryce, you know what you're going to get out of that. But like I said, Stott, Bohm, Casty, hell, even Max Kepler, your addition. I don't know. And then center field, Rojas, slap bat, Marsh. It's not a lot of hitting, and they didn't add a lot of hitting. However, the staff is going to keep them good. Again, they're a wild card contender. Most of these teams are wild card contenders if they're not winning the division in the East, because it's such a good division. As that segues me into number 2. That's where I have. This one might be a little bit weird. I don't know how to feel about this one. I have the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, I have the Atlanta Braves there, and I think my rationale is that I'm just not as gung-ho. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not as excited about them as I have been in past years. I think Austin Riley's going to have a big bounce back year, potentially Matt Olson. However, my worry is that this team really leans on and relies upon Ronald Acuna Jr., and we saw after his last ACL tear that it took him a year to get right back to where he was and win that MVP award. So this is another comeback year, his first year off of tearing his ACL again. Have to see what that's going to produce. We can address free agency now. In free agency, they brought in Jurickson Profar and Brian De La Cruz. That's it. Jurickson Profar, fine. You're hoping he's a good signing. He's been good only in San Diego, so you're hoping that he can take some of that, the hitting that he had in San Diego, and ideally bring it over to Atlanta. But he's only hit in San Diego. I think that's why everyone was so shy on Profar in free agency, was because you look at his Baseball Reference page, he's only hit in San Diego. But I think the Braves can do something with that. He's not really a good fielder in the outfield, so I wonder how they're going to do that. But we can move on to their losses. In free agency, they lost Max Fried, Jorge Soler, Travis d'Arnaud, Charlie Morton, AJ Minter, Gio Urshela, Ramon Laureano, John Brebbia, Adam Duvall, Tyler Matzik, Whit Merrifield, and Luke Jackson. In my opinion, I think they had some big losses in there. Max Fried is obviously a big one. You know, he's a really good pitcher. For as not great as he was last season in some points, especially in that wild card game, he got dented. He's still a solid pitcher, a fine pitcher to have around. And now it kind of makes me question what their 5 spot's going to be in the rotation. That's where a lot of my worry comes from. Of course, the team above them has pitching question marks as well. But with the loss of AJ Minter, Tyler Matzik, Luke Jackson, their bullpen is thinning. And their 5-starter, Grant Holmes, Ian Anderson, you're banking on Strider to come back and be good. Because before Strider went down, I can remember he wasn't playing his best ball. He wasn't pitching the best. So with all these players coming back off injuries this season, I'm a little bit more shy on them. I'm not saying that they're going to be a bad team. I still expect bounce backs from Matt Olson, Austin Riley. Like I said before, Mike Harris is going to be healthy this season, so he's probably going to play a big part. But overall, with the lack of health last season on this team, plus Travis d'Arnaud's gone, and I know d'Arnaud was the last out in the wild card, I believe. But Travis d'Arnaud was a really good fill-in for Sean Murphy when Murphy wasn't playing. And with Murphy coming off another season of injury-riddled play, I just worry that he'll be able to play a full season at catcher. I'm not sure who's going to be helping him out back there. There's just a lot of questions for me with this Braves roster, but I still think they have the pure talent to maybe win the division or pull a wild card spot. Profar can help you win the division, you know. Brian De La Cruz, maybe you can be the team to get something out of him. He's a guy who hits the ball hard, has a good, I believe has a good arm in the outfield, so maybe you can get something out of him. But the other 2 teams that have tried, Marlins and Pirates, haven't really had success, but maybe the Braves can. The Braves do have that little bit of hitting magic. I just wish they did a little bit more in free agency. Maybe address that shortstop issue. I thought they were for sure going to be the team that brings in Adames. Instead, they decided to kind of not pursue that route. And Orlando Arcia starting isn't my favorite, but he can play the position still a little bit. We can move on to number 1. There's only one team left. The New York Metropolitans. The Mets in free agency were very active. They brought in Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, AJ Minter, Jose Siri, Jesse Winker, Ryan Stanek, Griffin Canning, Drew Smith, Justin Hagenman, and Jared Young. They lost Jose Iglesias, JD Martinez, Phil Maton, Adam Ottavino, Jose Quintana, Brooks Raley, Severino, and Harrison Bader. Obviously, they were the big spender, but they also managed to keep Pete Alonso and Sean Manaea, which I think are huge. And maybe they bring back Quintana. I have no idea. But I think their rotation is the biggest question mark here, but their lineup is big. Like, it's a great lineup. You're looking at a lineup with Vientos, Pete, Soto. On top of that, Lindor obviously is there. Alvarez, hopefully he has a bounce back season. The Troll or whatever his name is. That's a funny nickname. But I think they have a really deep lineup that can definitely pose some threats for a lot of these teams out here. And if anyone in this league can turn Clay Holmes into a positive starter, it would be the Mets with, how David Stearns turns dumpster dive trash into gold. Tyrone Taylor played a big part on this team last year. Like, did you see that coming? They turned Sean Manaea back into a plus starter. Well, not back into. Manaea did the hard work. He was the one that went to drive line, I believe. So they were able to get a bunch of guys who maybe weren't looked at as positive starters and got positive innings out of them. Luis Severino, so they're a team that I think can definitely help fix players. Clay Holmes is a guy who, hey, maybe he can be a really disgusting pitcher. Not coming out of the bullpen, starting games. Maybe this is the team that fixes Frankie Montas is kind of my thought. I like the idea of Frankie Montas, and I think everyone likes the idea of Frankie Montas until you get the production of Frankie Montas. But overall, I think that the Mets lineup is just so deep. I think they may have one of the best lineups in baseball, maybe the best. No, probably the Dodgers have the best. The Dodgers segment isn't now, so screw the Dodgers. I just have the Mets winning it. I think that they are a good team. And I think that they're still on the prowl looking to add more. And they have a bunch of madmen owning that team, Mr. Cohen. And he's not a guy who is shy. He will pull the trigger on a trade at midseason. So, I don't know. I kind of have thoughts of that as well, going in the back of my mind that they're going to make another move. Let me know down in the comments who you guys would have winning the NL East. We can move on to the Central now. At number 5 in the Central, I have the team who's trying to lose. It's the St. Louis Cardinals. They believe that Nolan Arenado is going to be on the roster to start this season. I think that's fine, I guess. Who knows? Maybe he can play his way up in value or maybe down. Two ways that can go. But maybe he can play himself into increasing his trade value a little bit, and maybe a team will want to move for him at midseason. They don't seem to really want to win. Here's my personal opinion on the Cardinals. Why is Oli Marmol still managing there? I don't get it. I don't like him as a manager. I don't like him. Similarly to my disdain for Rocco Baldelli, I don't like either one. In free agency, the Cardinals brought in, and they lost, Paul Goldschmidt, Andrew Kittredge, Matt Carpenter, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and Yankees legend Keenan Middleton. They didn't do anything in free agency, and like I said, they're going toward a rebuild. That's what we're heading at with the Cardinals, and I think that that's okay. This team has some young guys. Mason Wynn is some young guy. Mason Wynn is a fun player. He's a really good defensive shortstop, and he can hit sometimes here and there. He might punch himself into being like a top 50 player in baseball this year if he could consistently hit again. However, they just want to get younger, and I completely understand and greenlight that. They brought in a bunch of old guys last year. Remember when they signed all them old pitchers last year? Lance Lynn, Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson. It was like, geez, guys, do you guys ever think about youth? They are thinking about youth now, rightfully so. Maybe they can fix Jordan Walker because he would have been the piece, in my opinion, if Arenado and Goldie didn't age as bad as they did. Imagine a core where they had good Arenado, good Goldschmidt, Mason Wynn, and Jordan Walker. That would have been fun. Instead, Jordan Walker's down the drain, Arenado's swirling, Goldie's down the drain and gone now, and Mason Wynn is still trying to come up and, become a better baseball player just in general. That's enough Cardinals talk for a rebuilding team. They got actually too much time. At number 4 in this division, I have another team that just consistently disappoints me. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates. Why do you decide to make me so sad every year, Pirates? Their free agency, they bring in Kutch. They bring back Kutch. They bring in Spencer Horwitz, Tommy Pham, Adam Frazier, Caleb Ferguson, Tim Meza, and Emmanuel Valdez. They lose Jalen Beeks, Marco Gonzalez, Yasmani Grandal, Aroldis Chapman, Luis Ortiz, Brian De La Cruz, Connor Joe, and Michael A. Taylor. And their ins and outs column is just filled with a bunch of mid. Like, the players they brought in aren't that good, and the players they lost also are not that good. Because Monty Grandal actually played all right for them last year from what I remember. He had some moments. That's something, I guess. Aroldis Chapman pitched some innings for them. Luis Ortiz was a good, starter here and there. He had some good starts. I think he's actually a pretty decent player. However, with an upcoming young core with Skeens, Jones, Keller on the pitching staff, and then you flip to the lineup card and you see O'Neal Cruz, you see Brian Reynolds, you see some big bats in there, and you're like, oh, this is a team that could contend. They had Spencer Horwitz, which I think is a good add in my opinion. I think he can ball. I think Spencer Horwitz can be a good player. Tommy Pham is Mr. Mid-season acquisition every season, and if the Pirates are really bad this year, which I'm kind of projecting they will be, Tommy Pham will once again be moved at the deadline as a bat to somebody who's hoping that they can get something out of him in a playoff push. None of their ads really did anything to move me, and I really thought and hoped that they were actually going to do something in this free agency period. Really disappointed with the Pirates overall. I just think that they should be better, could be better. Just sign some people. And there's talks of them moving one of their rotation pieces of Jones, Keller, specifically Jones or Keller. Probably Mitch Keller's on the block or Jerry Jones. I'm not sure which one's more on the block. But in all reality, why? I don't get it. Why? You can't have three good pitchers? You can't? Mitch Keller didn't have the best season last year, and I understand that, but I still think there's a positive pitcher in there somewhere. I don't know. I don't like what the Pirates did in free agency, and they didn't do enough to move themselves up in the division, so there you go. At number 3 in the division, oh boy. This is probably the most scared I've been for a pick. It's the Brewers. I had them actually not winning the division last year. I had them, I think, at 4th in my rankings, and then they proved me wrong. This is a team where, again, they scare you because they are so good at internal development that they could very well win this division off some guy's back that you've never heard of before. However, looking objectively at this lineup, I see 3 good hitters. About 3. I'm going to check again, but I see about 3 good hitters. William Contreras, that's 1 good hitter. I see Jackson Chourio is obviously 2 good hitters. And then Yelich, if he's healthy, is 3. Otherwise than that, I see Bryce Terang, who's not the best hitter. Caleb Durbin, little mini guy, little 5'6" second baseman in there. I like little Caleb Durbin. Little Caleb Durbin. Rhys Hoskins, I don't like. I don't like him. I think he's a mid-bat. He's older. He's 31 now. Garrett Mitchell, Blake Perkins, Sal Frelick in the outfield. Maybe Garrett Mitchell can hit. Garrett Mitchell can hit a little bit. So maybe 4 good bats. Blake Perkins, maybe. And then Sal Frelick, slap hitter. Isaac Collins, maybe. I have no idea. So there's 4 good hitters in this lineup. And then the pitching staff-wise... Oh, did I even say who they lost in free agency? Did I do that? I don't think I did, wins and losses. Oh, I did not talk about who they brought in and lost in free agency, so I'm going to do that real quick, actually. The Brewers brought in Nestor Cortez, Grant Anderson, Elvin Rodriguez, Tyler Alexander, and Grant Wolfram. Don't know. I don't know who Grant Wolfram is. I'm sorry, Grant Wolfram. I'm not familiar with your game. And then the losses, they lost Willy Adames, Devin Williams, Frankie Montas, Gary Sanchez, Hobie Milner, Joe Ross, Wade Miley, and Colin Ray. I think the losses are pretty big. Willy Adames, Devin Williams. I know Devin Williams. The fans probably don't have a good perception of him after that wild card game last year, understandably so. However, he was at least a good pitcher in the regular season. And then you lose Gary, who was a good backup bat. But they brought in Eric Haas. I guess that's something. They have Eric Haas. Overall, this lineup just isn't. It's just not. I don't know. I know they're never going to bring in the sexy names, but they have a starting pitcher group that consists of Aaron Savali, Nestor, DL Hall, who I think is injured already. He stopped throwing. Logan Henderson, Toby Myers, and Chad Patrick, Freddie Peralta, Carlos Rodriguez, Elvin Rodriguez, Brandon Woodruff if he's healthy. The rotation starting-wise is not as bad, to be honest, but they do have an army of starting pitchers. It is an army of arms. Like Freddie P, Tobias Myers, Nestor Cortez should get you at least some plus innings. And then Brandon Woodruff, if he's healthy, I don't know what to expect out of Brandon Woodruff. He's missed a lot of time in his career. Plus, he's 32 as well. You always got to worry about what's going on with Yelly, because while I love Christian Yelich, well, I think the MLB universe, like Christian Yelich, one of those players that's just universally loved in the MLB communities. He's an amazing guy. But he's aging, and on top of that, he gets injured frequently. And I don't know how many times he can make a comeback to full strength after getting hurt. These big injuries take a toll. So while I don't mind a lot of the things that they have going on in their roster, there's too many question marks here for me, man. And like I said, their lineup isn't deep, so I wonder where their production's going to come from. I really just don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty here with the Milwaukee Brewers, and I think that's why I'm so comfortable putting them at third, is because I just don't see where a lot of that lineup production is going to come from. At number 2 in the NL Central, I have the Cincinnati Reds. Some people might not like that, understandably so. They were a team that definitely didn't do a ton in free agency. They brought in Nick Martinez, Brady Singer, Gavin Lux, Taylor Rogers, Austin Hayes, Wade Miley, Jose Trevino, and Scott Barlow. They lost Buck Farmer, Jakob Younis, Tyler Mahle, I think his name is, Jonathan India, Justin Wilson, Ty France, Ahmed Rosario, and Joey Weimer. I think Nick Martinez was paramount to bringing back. He was really good in that rotation last year. Brady Singer, I'm curious to how that's going to play with that contact-heavy approach in a park that doesn't hold a lot of soft contact. Gavin Lux, who his second half was better, in my opinion. His second half was better for the Dodgers. Taylor Rogers, because their bullpen was mid last year. Austin Hayes, maybe platoon outfielder. Wade Miley can throw innings. Jose Trevino can platoon at catcher. And then Scott Barlow is a fine relief option. Their losses column isn't that crazy. India, it was a good second baseman, but I believe that there's other players, i.e. Matt McClain. I think that this team, when healthy, should be good. Like, they have an ace, Hunter Green, and they have a couple of building blocks on the offensive side as well that I really like. Ellie, Matt McClain, maybe you can get production out of Jake Fraley. You still have Spencer Steer, who's a good baseball player. Maybe Friedel can flip it around and have a good year. I don't know, man. There's something about this Reds team, but the Reds are a team that always disappoints. So maybe they will disappoint this season, but overall, I just like their free agency a lot. And on top of that, I like what they have building. Tyler Stevenson and Trevino behind the plate is a good platoon group. First baseman, Christian Encarnacion Strand, CES. You're hoping you can get something positive out of him, but if not, somebody like, what's his name? Spencer Steer can platoon and play first base a little bit. Noelvi Marte served as suspension. He's only 23 still, Noelvi Marte, so maybe there's something left in there. Matt McClain showed a lot of promise in the limited time he had, not last year, but the year before that, and Ellie obviously good. Candyman can bounce back. I like Jeimer Candelario. I wonder what's happening with him and why he struggled last season. There's just so much youth on this team, and it makes me think that there's got to be something in there. I really like just a lot of their core players. I mean, like I said, you're talking about Jake Fraley, who I think can hit. He's a good lefty bat. Spencer Steer, who can be a positive hitter. McClain, Marte, Lux, Candelario, De La Cruz, Stevenson, they just have it. And on top of that, they have a top-line starter with Hunter Green. And on top of that, you pile in Ashcraft, who might come out of the pen. Abbott, Lodolo, Louder, Martinez. This is a good team, man. I think it's a good team. I do. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll take my lumps if I am wrong. That's why we do it on the magnet board, so that way you guys can constantly remind me what it looked like at the beginning of the year. Oh, because this will be updated throughout the season. I'm not just going to leave it through my predictions. I'm going to update it like every other week or something like that, maybe, just to do something fun. But overall, I like the Reds' additions and losses. I don't think the losses were too big, so I gave them the nod. That leaves one. It was my winner. It was my predicted winner from last season who punched me in the face. They're probably going to do it again. It's the Chicago Cubs. The Cubbies had an active free agency. They brought in Kyle Tucker, Matt Boyd, Ryan Presley, Eli Morgan, Carson Kelly, I had to remember who that was, Caleb Thielbar, Ryan Brazier, Colin Ray, John Birdie, Cody Poteet, Vidal Brujan, and Nicky Lopez. They lost Drew Smiley, Cody Bellinger, Hendricks, Talkman, Jorge Lopez, Isak, and Hayden Wesneski. However, they look very good, right? I think they just have really good, a defense that's pretty good, and then a pitching staff that's pretty competent, in my opinion. They're a decent pitching staff. Starting pitching has Javi Assad, Ben Brown, Shota Managa, Cody Poti, who can throw, Justin Steele, Tyone, Jordan Wicks. It's an interesting group, don't get me wrong. I think that Tyone is fine as like a 3-4 starter. Imanaga showed good things last season. And then obviously Justin Steele was supposed to be your ace, and he still can be. The biggest question mark I have for them is that catcher spot. Miguel Amaya, Carson Kelly, and Caleb Knight. I'm unfamiliar with Caleb Knight's game, but it's not a pretty unit. It's not. Miguel Amaya looked pretty bad last season, and I don't know if it's going to get better. However, with an infield with Michael Bush, Nico Horner, John Birdie, could play a little bit, and Dansby Swanson, Vidal Brujan maybe, can hit, in my opinion. I mean, PCA is a good defensive center fielder. Then you have Happ, who can hit. Happ's been consistently good. Ian Happ's been consistently good for a while. He deserves some flowers. And then Seiya Suzuki, Kyle Tucker can mash as well. Do I think this team is stacked and loaded? No. Do I think any NL Central team is stacked or loaded? No. Is this the most wide open division in baseball? Absolutely. And do I think that the Cubs are going to run away with it? No. I think this is going to be a tooth and nail race until the last couple of games of the season. These teams aren't that good. I'm just going to come right out and say it. The Central's bad, dog. Like, bad. So the Central's the one with the most variance, in my opinion. I think that the number one team in the Central may or may not be the Cubs. It's the one I'm least confident in. These picks in the Central get gross because the teams in the Central are getting kind of gross. We could start out west. It's not Rocktober. That's number 5. It is not Rocktober this season. I don't think Rocktober's coming any sooner. The Rockies in free agency brought in Jacob Stallings, Kyle Farmer, Tyro Estrada, and lost Cal Quantrill, Daniel Bard, and Brendan Rodgers. On to the next team. At number 4 in the NL West, I still have the San Francisco Giants. Gassed up their offseason a little bit, like maybe a month or two ago, but then I look back at it, I see their only additions are Adames and Verlander, and they lost Snell, Conforto, Rogers, and Mark Canha, and Taylor Rogers. They brought in 2 guys, bro. I thought it was going to be bigger than that. I like the Adames addition, and I think it strengthens their lineup a little bit. However, I still think that their lineup is just a lot of question marks. Buster Posey is trying his best, and I'm not going to sit here and dunk on the guy and be like, you brought in 2 players, that's it? Because the Giants aren't the sexiest destination, I've learned, simply because of the amount of times that they've been used as leverage, man. They're like the West Coast version of the Blue Jays, where they just get used for leverage, right? And the Giants are a solid team, and I still don't think that they're going to do bad this season, but I still don't think that they're a top-level team like the rest of these teams are. At number 3 in the West, I have the Padres, who I actually think I had winning it last year. Of course, that was a bad choice, but either way, the Padres brought in Nick Pivetta, Elias Diaz, Connor Joe, Jason Hayward, and Kyle Hart, and they lost Freight Train David Peralta, Tanner Scott, Jurickson Profar, Ha-Seong Kim, Higashioka, Martin Perez, and Donnie Barrels, Donovano Solano. Man, that losses column goes hard. Tanner Scott, Jurickson Profar, Ha-Seong Kim, Kyle Higashioka, and Donovan Solano. Those guys played big roles last season, and they only brought in Nick Pivetta to be their 5 starter. They needed another starter, so Pivetta made sense. However, unless they got another Jackson Merrill type up their sleeve, a prospect that I didn't know about that comes up screaming and scorching hot, then you're left with a corner outfield that involves Jason Hayward, Connor Joe. It's not a pretty group out there. And then your catcher spot's also not that pretty because it's Pusano right now. And then you're going to have to is Eton Salas coming up anytime soon? I doubt it. He looked pretty bad last year in the minors from what I remember. I'm just confused whether they're buyers or sellers. I genuinely have no idea, and I think that's what scares me the most about them. They could fall to 4. The Giants could lap them 100%, simply because if they're mid-season, I really bet that this this group that's fighting for ownership would 100% sell. That leaves 2. Number 2 in the division, the snake-bit Diamondbacks. They bring in Corbin Burns, Josh Naylor, Randall Grichuk, and lose Jock Peterson, Christian Walker, Kevin Newman, Josh Bell, Paul Sewald, and Slade Ciccone. Corbin Burns, big ad, and I think that makes their pitching staff very formidable with Corbin Burns, Merrill Kelly, and Zach Gallen. On top of that, you're hoping that you can get positive production out of like Ryan Nelson. Maybe Jordan Montgomery is good. I doubt it, dude. Jordan Montgomery is not going to do good this year. I think their biggest loss was Jock. Although Christian Walker's very good, they brought in Josh Naylor to kind of supplement that, who's probably going to mash in that park, honestly. But Jock was a huge loss. That guy was amazing for the Diamondbacks last year and carried their lineup in that front half when they looked terrible. Guys like Corbin Carroll weren't holding weight in the first half. And Jock was carrying weight. And I don't just mean on his big-ass stomach. We like Jock around here. We love Jock. We love Jocktober. I just think that their ads are really good. And in that second half, they really figured some stuff out. They still have a really good team, all things considered. I mean, you're looking at the first base with Josh Naylor, second base Marte, shortstop is still a little bit rough. You might be looking at Perdomo still, but Perdomo's a fan favorite and one of those guys in the locker room they love, I guess. Gino at third. Gino had a big year last year, a big second half that helped carry them and almost make the playoffs off of basically his production. Behind the plate, they have a guy who I think can solidify himself as a top 5 player at his position in Gabriel Moreno. In the outfield, you still have Lourdes, who isn't bad. You still have Carroll. Then you're obviously platooning with McCarthy and Blaze Alexander. I think that they're still solid, still young, and this is a team that's going to make a playoff spot or a wild card spot more specifically. They could be the top wild card team in my opinion. They look good. I just really like the look of this team. That leaves one. We don't even have to talk about it. I'll talk about who they brought in and who they, lost, but it really doesn't matter. The redacted blue team name: Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, Teoscar Hernandez, Tanner Scott, Clayton Kershaw. It's Haesung Kim, I think I saw. Kirby Yates, Michael Conforto, Blake Trinan, Kike, Giovanni Gallegos, and they lost Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty, Gavin Lux, Joe Kelly, Brent Honeywell, and Zach Logue. I don't know. I don't really care. They're going to win the division. They're the paper champs of the offseason, but the paper champs still have to play the games. They're going to cruise win to this division, I'd say. They probably win it by more than 7 games. I think that's fair. They just signed so many people, bro. I'm tired of talking about redacted name. I'm not even going to tell you what the team name is. You don't know. You don't know who I'm talking about. But if you enjoyed this video, I'm not talking about that team. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, share, sub. Fuck you, Joe Kelly. I'm going to go catch a game. See you guys in the next one.